Okay, this is carrying charge video number 2. And in this video, I'm going to discuss how inflation, simple little inflation, not a lot of inflation, a little bit of inflation can distort the whole analysis, and how absolutely essential it is to use something I would call the real or the constant carrying charge. Now, before we get started, in the last video where I left off, I think I had a different color. This is called carrying charge analysis for diesel, solar, and batteries. It's really, I think I'm just going to call it carrying charge analysis. Excuse me for that. Now, I made this new thing in the generic macros, and here's what you do. If you want to see how this works, you just go to assign macro, go to edit, and you look at all this stuff, and you see kind of how it works. I've tried to document it, but whatever. I shouldn't have said whatever. Okay, you can look at it. Now, if I press Shift Alternate C, if I press Shift Alternate C, that's where I left off, and I wanted to fix a couple of things. So let's say I want this one to be our color, excuse me. Or I change this little spinner box, and the spinner box changes this checkbox. Excuse me for hiccuping, I'm not drunk. Okay, now you can do the same thing for this title code thing. Okay, and the final one you can use is, it says title color from sheet, and this is the same here. We have flexible color from sheet. Now, what I meant by that, perhaps it's not clear enough. I'm going to press exit without color. Okay, you can kind of put your own color in here. So let's say, I want a yellow background. Now, I kind of thought that, and I'll put a black foreground. Well, I kind of already have that. So let's put, maybe we decide to put a, no, we don't have this one. Okay, so that's what I want. I'm going to press implement after I type it. And then I press Shift Alternate C. Okay. And it takes a tiny little bit there because it counts all the rows in the sheet and columns. That's an absolutely crucial part of how the whole thing works. You just see that. And now we're going to go here, and we could either do it like this or just change the checkbox. So I fixed that since the last video as well. Now we're using both of these things. And all we do is then press Color Sheet. Okay, and you just have to wait for a minute, and it's going, and it takes a little bit longer than before because I want to absolutely make sure we color every single cell, and I was kind of struggling with this. So there's our kind of flexible input color. I hope it's this one. There it is. And there are our title colors. Okay, so that's the little improvement in the generic macros file. Okay, took me a long time. Okay, but you can see how these forms work, and whatever. Now let's get to the real thing. Let's put Alt E M. That's just going to make a copy of the sheet. I'm going to press Create Copy here. Okay, so that's a nice little shortcut key. Now, this time, we're going to do the same thing. I'm going to name this Simple with Inflation. And I'm going to put, I'm going to add two things. Let's add an inflation rate. Okay, and so far we've got everything in. Let's say we change the rate of return to 5%, much more realistic. I think the carrying charge over here did change. Okay, and we're going to put an inflation rate of 3%. So there's kind of a real return over and above inflation of 2%. Okay. What that is a absolutely crucial question. And now let's put a fuel uh, intensive alternative. Okay, now I'm going to just try to explain this, and I just don't understand how this people don't do this. If you've got a fuel, if you're going to buy diesel fuel or something like this, well, that's going to inflate over 20 years, even if it's a low inflation. So right now we have over here a payment function. Let's pretend our fuel was 100. Now I'm gonna insert a few lines, of course, and let's go over here. Put the fuel. Can't seem to spell at all. Fuel intensive cost. Okay, so we'll just put an equal sign, go up to here. How about we'll start with an inflation index. Okay, and just put, as usual, put a 1 and put a here. Okay, and multiply this by 1 plus the inflation rate. Okay, so another little lesson. Again, I have to press Shift Control R twice sometimes. Sorry about that. I tried to struggle with automatic ways to do that, but I don't really think that's worth it. Press F4 and multiply this by the inflation rate. Okay, so that now, here is the problem. How our levelized cost, and I should have, let's make it a lifetime of 20 again. Okay. How do we really compare this fuel intensive cost with our capital intensive cost? One thing to do, and I need to also multiply this by the switch, excuse me for that. One thing we could do was, we could levelize this. We could take the net present value of this and get a level cost, and it would give us kind of the fuel cost that occurs in the middle of the life of the project. Why would you want to do that? That's like saying, let's pick the year 2028 or 2035, and let's use that as our basis for comparison. How ridiculous would that be? Wouldn't it be better to take this recovery down here, and instead of computing the recovery in nominal terms, let's deflate the recovery. So let's put the real recovery. Okay, and we just put take the total amount and just divide it by the inflation index. Okay. Now, once you do that, okay, we could then say, okay, well, let's take the net present value now of the real revenues. Okay. Okay, and then with this we could compare it to the fuel charge, and we could directly compare it to the 100. Okay, we didn't have to do anything. Now the only thing we should do is when we use that, we better first compute the real discount rate. Okay. And whenever you're going to compute a real rate, you take 1 plus the nominal rate, if it's constant like this, divided by 1 plus the rate of inflation. If you have changing rates of inflation, then you put -1. So our real discount rate, oops, I pressed Shift Control R, I meant Shift Control P. Okay, and let's use the the real discount rate in our NPV formula. Now, I computed the real rate. Now, just a moment ago, we had the total recovery. We have to use the real recovery. And notice it gives back our initial investment. So we use the real discount rate. That's kind of the lesson. We just proved it in a backwards kind of way without, some elegant mathematics or anything. And then we can compute the payment by just using the real discount rate up here. Okay, and this is a lifetime. F8 must be the lifetime of the project, and the discount rate. That's our payment. Now, if we use this payment, this proof of payment this time, we're going to have to take this fixed number and multiply that by the inflation rate. So I hope you can kind of see where we're going. All right, and in fact, this initial payment now, which gives the correct NPV of the revenues, you take the payment, you take the real payment, and then allow it to inflate, just like we allowed the fuel-intensive option to inflate. And now we've got a fair comparison, because this 60 can be compared with that 100. And I suppose it's almost not worth doing kind of a levelization, but if we did this, we would again use the real discount rate. So I might as well repeat everything here, so we really have a very comprehensive kind of example. And then when we take this weighted average, all we have to do is make sure and take the real rate. And that gives us our same answer again. And if we want to put a test, we need to escalate the revenues, just like we did before, okay? And then we put in our cost, and notice after you escalated it, you get the correct 5% carrying charge, which is what you put in the first place. So it all works. Now, here's what doesn't work. This little thing where we did the economic depreciation, and we kind of came up with this nice kind of level approach with the payment function. Well, if you are going to compute the economic depreciation with inflation, here's the trick to doing it. You start with the investment. So I'm going to put our 1,000 of investment, our standard thing that I'll use for everything. This is our overnight cost. Okay, and you put in a real discount rate, not a nominal discount rate, and then you get kind of you get what the increasing payment is. And then, I don't know really why this works. I'm kind of embarrassed. You put an opening balance, and then you put less the economic depreciation. And this economic depreciation, by definition, this is kind of like the repayment of a loan. And then you put the carrying charge, and you put the nominal carrying charge here. And we're going to use here, this is Shift Control P again, and we're going to put a nominal carrying charge rate again. I'm obsessed a little bit with depreciation and getting kind of the depreciation and the capital allocation right, because you can do so much with this stuff. We'll start with our 1,000. We'll put our opening balance in. This is kind of just a review of the concepts of sculpting almost. And then you take the difference, and then you take the opening balance. Every single time we do this, we use the opening balance. Okay, I'm going to hopefully fairly quickly, and then you copy that across. We get a negative depreciation. Just 1 second here. Okay, so I should have not used the PPMT function, just the payment. We just take a simple payment here because we don't have any taxes or anything else yet. This measures the carrying charge on the investment, and this measures the repayment. This total repayment, it measures the depreciation, rather. It adds up to the total investment. That's what kind of a repayment does. And then we just put up here for the depreciation, you put in the payment, and look what happens. You get the return, and oh shit. So, excuse me, everything was fine. I was just looking at the carrying charge. So now we have the real carrying charge rate. The 6.26% is just the first year. That's the first year. And that's equivalent kind of to our little fuel intensive cost option here. So now we can really compare things in a more careful way. And even if the inflation is only 2%, it makes a big difference. If the inflation was 0%, then we're up to 8% as our carrying charge rate. And if it's 4%, we have this. And so we have fuel intensive cost, and we have capital intensive cost. And we just can compare that directly, and you can kind of see now, and that's this, we computed it kind of 8 different ways here. If we had a 0 rate of inflation, or if we wanted a 10% return, a nominal return without inflation, it looks like we're above 8%. Maybe it's kind of similar. Okay, but as soon as we put, if it was 8%, if we put 3% inflation, then once you compare the inflation, you get a pretty dramatically, that's a 20% difference in carrying charge. So let's just finish this finally. Demonstrates that we really have to apply inflation in everything we do. Shift Alt C to get our little thing. I don't know. How about I'll use this for the input color this time. I'm going to make a ridiculous kind of thing here. And we can go up and use this for our title color. How's that? And this includes true-false conditional formatting. I'm going to kind of leave that in. And this says if you've made 6 different runs of this coloring, you don't want to have it add the conditional formatting each time, so it just cleans it out. And this says, this gives you an option not to do this first title color. So I'm just going to press the color sheet, and we're going to the oops, finally. Oh, I was a little afraid of that. That wasn't going to work. Then I was going to be really upset. So that's our different colors. Okay. I press Shift Alt C again. Yes, this was a little bit similar to our original one, so I'm going to change that one more time and just. I hope you've turned the video off now because I'm ending. This is the end of it. Okay, and I hope that you would download this new version of the generic macros. Okay. Okay. Oops.